So today we are going to be learning how to use K12 Asset Pro. When you first log in, you'll see our main dashboard here. What we have here is just kind of some high-level summary information about what you've got going on with assets in your district. You can see how many assets you have at different school sites, assets by different funding source, assets by category, assets that will be reaching the end of their life soon, just kind of high-level information here. You can also see how many assets you have by different statuses, and these statuses are fully customizable. So you can go ahead and you can create any statuses that you want, any statuses that make sense for kind of the flow of assets in your district. But we are going to start right at the very beginning, and we are going to be creating a new asset for ourselves here in the system. So I'm going to come to my create button that I will find at the top of my screen. I'll go ahead and click on create a new asset. And this part is going to be pretty self-explanatory. We've got a bunch of data fields here that we can fill out about our asset. Many of them are optional, a few of them are required. And I always encourage you to add as much data about your asset as you can right at the beginning when you're first entering it into the system, because a lot of times we have a tendency to just kind of add the bare minimum that's required for an asset. And we think, oh, we'll come back later, we'll add the purchase order name cost. We'll add the purchase order number later. We'll add the funding source later. But then life gets busy and we forget to come back, and then we never end up with that information for the asset. So I always encourage you to try and enter as much of that info right at the beginning as you can. So we'll start at the top. We're going to go ahead and we'll select the school site that we're going to be adding this asset to. If we know the final location that it's going to be put into, the location of the room, we can go ahead and we can add that right now. Or we can leave that blank if we want. But we're going to go ahead and say we're adding this into room 104. We'll go ahead and add the asset tag number that we have put onto this item here. And then we'll go ahead and give the asset a description. The description could be anything you want, but I generally recommend using kind of like just the layperson's term, the generic term for whatever you're adding. So for example, here, we are going to go ahead and we're going to add a laptop. So I'm just going to put laptop as the description, but you can use anything that you want. This is your field to use. We'll go ahead and we'll add a serial number. I always encourage you to add as many serial numbers as you can into the system. They're a great way to look up an asset if a student peels off an asset tag, and we know that students love to do that. So go ahead and put the serial number for your item in here. And then next, we're going to add the manufacturer in the model. So the manufacturer and the model are all taken care of on one drop-down menu here. And as I scroll through, you'll see all of the different models that you have of different assets in your district are available in this list here. But this is a long list, and you're not going to scroll through this to find the type of item that you're adding. You're going to go ahead and search. You'll see that up the top here is a search bar. And we can search the manufacturer's name or the model name, and we can even do partial searches here. So I'll go ahead and if I type in Dell, you'll see it's going to provide me all the different types of Dell computers that we have available in the district. I can search maybe Latitude if I want, and you'll see it brings me up all the different Dell Latitudes that we have available. I can also search by number. So for example, I can start typing in 9951, and it's going to bring me up that Dell Latitude 9951. Now this will do partial searches. So if I just do 99, it's going to start pulling me up anything that matches 99. So you can see we have 5599, 3399, 9900. And so the more you start typing in, the more it's going to refine those search results down for you. So you'll just go ahead and you'll select the model that you're adding here. And the reason that we have this from a drop-down menu is that latitude is a good example. A lot of times people will have a typo in the word latitude when they're entering it into a system. People might put too many T's, not enough T's. People might do Dell latitude hyphen 9951. Some people might do latitude space 9951. And so a lot of people, if we're just typing in, they're going to type in different versions, different iterations of the same model name. And we kind of want them to all be the same because it helps keep our reporting and our asset list much cleaner. So that's why we do this from a drop-down menu. So you go ahead and you select the model name that's already in there for the item that you're trying to add. Now, we might say, well, Dell just came out with a new version of the Latitude this year. It's the Latitude 9952. And so I'm going to go ahead and search 9952. and I'm not going to find any results. And that's because we've never purchased the latitude 9952 in the district yet. So I've got to be the first one to add that in. So luckily, if I need to add in a new model name, I can go ahead and I've got a big blue button right here to go ahead and do that. And I can call this a latitude 9952. I'll give it a category. So we're going to go ahead and say that this is the laptop category. Give it a manufacturer. I'll go ahead and say this is Dell. And you can see if you need to add a new manufacturer, you've got a button for that as well. And we can go ahead and save that for ourselves. And now we've got our latitude 9952 in there. Now we've got a bunch of other data fields here that are all optional. Again, I always recommend trying to add as much information as you can into the system. So we can go ahead and set a purchase date. We can give ourselves a purchase cost. We can give ourselves a purchase order number. We can select a funding source, federal award identification number. We can upload an image of this item if we want to. We've got department and condition and building and funding code, and all of these different data fields are available here for us. So I always recommend try to fill in as much of this information as you've got right at the beginning. Okay, but so once we've got everything in here, I'm going to go ahead and save this item. And now that asset has been added to the system for us. So after I save it, this now has brought me to an asset list view. And so there's a bunch of things I want to show you about an asset list view because there's many different scenarios that we're looking at assets in a list in K12 Asset Pro. So the first thing I want to show you is if I scroll all the way down to the bottom, it's going to show me that I'm displaying 20 rows per page right now. I could change that. I could choose how many assets I want to show on a page at a given time. So I can have 30 or 50, up to 500 all on one page at the same time. The only thing to be aware of is the more assets you have on a page, the longer it takes that page to load. So I usually leave it at about 20, but you can select anything that you'd like there. The next thing I want to show you is this magnifying glass over here with the little plus icon in it. This is our advanced search feature button. So when I go ahead and click on that, basically I can apply filters to the list that I'm looking at. So if I want, I could filter by site, I could filter by category. If maybe I want only my laptops at the elementary school, I can put on any filters I want, and then I can go ahead and hit apply. And you'll see once I've done that, it now is applying filters to match what I've put on. Now, one thing I always like to mention is that once you turn a filter on, it will stay on for this list, even if I click away and I come back to it. And you'll know that the filter is on because the button has turned blue. And I just mentioned this because sometimes people come to me and they say, Scott, all of my assets have disappeared. Did I do something by accident? No, you didn't accidentally delete all your assets. You just had a filter on and you forgot to turn it off. So if we're going to go ahead and turn our filter off, I'm going to click on that button again. I'm going to click on clear selections, and I can apply that. And now all of my assets are back. The next thing that I want to show you is this little button here that looks like 3 columns. If I click on this, you'll see that I can choose which columns are displaying in my list. So if, for example, I do not want to see the serial number list, I can go ahead and deselect serial number and that column will disappear. Or I can go ahead and reselect it and now I have my serial number column again. And you'll see that all of the different data fields that you are tracking for your assets are available to be displayed in this list. So you can pick and choose whatever makes sense for what you're trying to take a look at and choose which columns you've got displayed. Okay, the last thing I want to show you is the list search bar here. You'll see there are 2 different search bars on our screen right now. We've got this search bar at the top that says search by asset tag. The only thing we can put in there is an asset tag number. That's the only thing we can enter and search in there is the asset tag number of our items. Here, kind of within the confines of the list view, we have another search bar, and this is a more flexible search bar. This is basically like the Google search bar of your asset list. You can search anything in here. Yes, you can search an asset tag number, but you can also search a description or a model name or a serial number. It will even check through any of the notes that you have kept for any of your assets. So I'll start off, I can go ahead and I can paste in the asset tag of that laptop that we just added at the beginning of this training, and we'll see it pulls up there. But I can also go ahead and I can just search Dell, and it's going to show me any of the products that we have that have Dell as the manufacturer. Or I can go ahead and search Apple, and it's going to show me any Apple products that we've got. I could search iPad if I want, and it will show me any of the iPads that we've got. And another really useful thing that we can do is we can search by serial number. So I can go ahead and I can search for a serial number in this box, and it's going to find that iPad for me. And that's really good to know because, as we know, students often will peel off asset tags and we'll find iPads and Chromebooks and things like that that don't have an asset tag on it. But we can always find the serial number from the device itself. So, serial number search is a great way to find that missing asset tag for ourselves. We could even do partial searches. So, if this serial number is partially scratched off and I delete half of that, we can go ahead and we can still find that asset tag. It's still going to make any partial searches for us. So this search bar here is really good for us to know about. It's a really flexible search bar for us. Okay, so that is how we add assets. Now let's go ahead and let's mess around with some of our assets a little bit. So let's go ahead and take this interactive panel that we've got down here. You'll see that on this asset information page, you can see all the information that we've recorded about the asset, everything you expect to have, the school site and the location and the serial number and the manufacturer and the model and purchase date and purchase cost and PO number, et cetera, et cetera. And we've got a few things that we can do with this asset here. So if we click on the actions bar in the top right-hand corner, we'll see that we can edit assets, transfer assets, request disposal, clone, etc. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you how we clone this asset. So let's say we bought more than one of the same interactive panel here. We don't have to enter all the information over and over again for each one that we're going to add into the system. We can just go ahead and we can clone that asset. And when I click on clone, what you'll see is it's going to copy over all of the information that we had from that asset. The only thing it does not copy over is the asset tag and the serial number, because those two things are going to be unique for any of those assets, for any new assets that we're adding. So we can go ahead and we can add in the asset tag number that we've put onto the second interactive panel, and we'll go ahead and we'll add in the serial number for that second interactive panel. And then we can go ahead and save that. And now that new interactive panel has been added to the system. And we can go ahead and we can clone and we can clone and we can keep cloning again. Other actions that we've got, we can obviously edit an asset. So if I come into edit, you'll see all of our data fields are here and they're all available for us to edit. So let's say that we realized actually there was supposed to be an X at the end of the serial number, and actually we made a mistake, and that was actually supposed to be $6,197 on the purchase cost. We can go ahead and make those changes and we can save. Now, one thing I like to show is that you have a history log of any asset. So we keep a record of any changes that are happening to any asset. So if anyone is editing it, updating it, anything like that, you can go ahead and you can see that in history. You can see who made the last changes, what the changes were. For example, you can see the old serial number was this, and you can see the new serial number is the one that I just added the X to the end to. And you can see we've updated the cost, things like that. So if there's anything that ever doesn't look quite right with an asset, you can always come in here and you can see who the last person was that made any changes to that asset, and you can follow up with them if you need to. Now, the next action that we've got is that we can transfer assets. So we'll go ahead and do a transfer. And transferring is just if we're moving the asset from one school to another or from one room within the school to another. So if we're just moving this from room 234 to room 235, we can do that transfer. Or if I want, I can transfer this. Maybe we're bringing this over to the high school and we can go ahead and make that transfer. So we can transfer the asset anywhere that we need to. We'll put this into elementary school room 104 where we added that other new asset for ourselves. Great. Last action I want to show you here is how we can request this asset for disposal. So let's go ahead and say that maybe this interactive panel fell off the wall and it got broken and it just can't be repaired. It needs to be disposed. We can go ahead and put a disposal request in for that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have to select a reason for our disposal request. So let's go ahead and say that this item is broken. And we'll go ahead and we need to leave a note. So we'll say broken beyond repair. This could just be anything you want. This is just to make sure we have a paper record of why we're requesting the disposal of this asset. Now we can go ahead and confirm the location that this is in. Sometimes when we've got assets that are going to be disposed, we've consolidated them to maybe a closet or maybe the media center, things like that. So if we need to, we can go ahead and change the site and the location so that anyone who might be coming by to pick this up knows where to go looking for this broken interactive panel. If we want to, we can update the condition of this. So we could go ahead and say this item is broken. And then the last thing we can do is we can go ahead and upload a file for this asset if we want to. So that could be like a photo of the broken item. If it was maybe this was a piece of kitchen equipment and it was broken and we got a repair estimate and the estimate just costs way too much, it's not worth it. We're just going to get rid of the item. You could go ahead and put a copy of that estimate. Anything you want, optional, just becomes part of that disposal record for us here. Once we're done with that, we can go ahead and click save. And now that asset has been moved into the awaiting disposal approval status. We can go ahead and see that here. Now this asset is awaiting disposal approval. I'll be showing you in a little bit how we can run reports for those awaiting disposal approval assets, how we can get a list of them, and how we can dispose those assets as well. Okay, great. Okay, so we've now learned how we can add an asset, how we can edit it, how we can transfer it, how we can request disposal, how we can clone it. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and learn how to check out and check in assets. So let me go ahead and just get the number of a laptop here for me that I can do a little check in and check out with here. Okay. So there's multiple ways to do check-in and check-out. As you can see, all these assets have a checkout button next to them. We could go ahead and use that if we want, or I'm going to come to the check-in, check-out window here. And I like to use this window because if you do have any, for example, like media specialists or IT coordinators in your district who might be getting access only to do check-in and check-out in the system, when they log into K12 Asset Pro, this is the only window they're going to see. So this would be the portal through which they are doing their check-ins and checkouts. So I like to show it here when I'm doing a training. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and enter the asset tag number in there and click my blue checkout button. And one thing to note is you'll see you can do checkout to a user, to an asset, or to a location. Most of the time we're checking out assets to a user. But the common example for checking out an asset to another asset is if we are going to check out Chromebooks to a laptop charging cart, if we're using classroom sets. So we could always do that instead of assigning it to the room. That way we know if that Chromebook gets moved, wherever that Chromebook charging cart is supposed to be, that's where that Chromebook is supposed to be. But most of the time, we're going to be checking out assets to a user. So I'm going to go ahead and select a user here. You'll see we can search our users by their first name, their last name, their username, their email address, their student ID numbers. Pretty much any of the information that you have in the system about your students, you can use to search here for. So I'm going to go ahead and search Allison here. And one thing you'll see is once I click on Allison, it will show me a little summary information about her. It will show me if she has any unpaid fees, and it will also show me if we have any other devices that are assigned to her. So that, maybe we don't want to check out another laptop to her because she already has a laptop assigned to her. Or maybe it's okay. Maybe she's checking out another laptop because her main laptop is being repaired and this is just going to be a loaner for a couple of weeks, and so that's okay. But it gives us this information, so if we need to make any decisions about maybe not checking out an item to a student, we can go ahead and do that. You'll see here the expected check-in date is automatically set in this account for the last day of school. So you can set that as the default expected check-in date for any items that you check out. You can always manually choose the date. So if this is just going to be something that's just going to be checked out for a couple of weeks, we can go ahead and manually select another date for ourselves. You've got that option. But once we have our user selected, we simply go ahead and we're going to click our check out button here, and we're done. Now, if we go ahead and take a look at that asset, we'll see it's going to show us that that laptop is checked out to Allison Adkins here. And if we were going to check that laptop back in, you'll see we do have a check-in button right here on the asset information page, but I'm going to go back to that check-in, check-out window, just so we can kind of keep using this window here like one of our media specialists might be using. So to check that asset back in, I'm simply going to put my asset tag number in there. I'm going to click my blue check-in button. You'll see what it does is it flashes on screen for me, the user that is supposed to be handing this in to me, who this is assigned to, because maybe Allison and Jenny have maybe accidentally swapped their Chromebooks. So it just puts that on screen as they're handing it back to me. So I can just make sure the right person is handing the Chromebook back to me. Now, it might be that Jenny is handing this back to me and it's actually assigned to Allison, and I still say, okay, that's fine. I'm going to still accept it. I can go ahead and leave a note for myself saying, Jenny handed in this Chromebook, but it is assigned to Allison. So I can go ahead and just leave any notes I want to continue to have that paper trail. Now, another thing to note too is when I'm doing a check-in of this asset, I can update the status right here. So for example, if I'm taking this Chromebook back in because it's broken and need to be repaired, I can go ahead and set my status right here during check-in to out for repair. Any of the other statuses I have available as well. Now, most of the time, we're just going to leave the status as active, but you've got that option if you want to. And we can simply go ahead and check in that asset, and we're done. So that's check in, check out, very simple, very easy. Okay, the next quick thing I'm going to show you is let's say that that Allison comes to us and she says, I don't remember what items I have assigned to me. Can you look up like what Chromebook is supposed to be mine? I can come into my users list here and I can go ahead and I can see any of my students are in here. I can go ahead and search them. So I can search, let's say, Allison Adkins. I can find that user here. I can click on their name and I can see a list of any assets that are assigned to them. So I can come here and I can always get a list of any assets that are assigned to them. And if I want to, I can also click the email list of all assigned, and that will send an email to that user with a list of all the asset tags that are assigned to them. So that's pretty nice and easy. Now, if we're going to be adding any new users, you can see we can go ahead and always create a new user. But what I like to point out is I like to point out some of the permissions that you can set for a new user. So creating a new user is fairly straightforward. First name, last name, username, password, things like that. If after you've created that user, you wanted to automatically send them a welcome email that has all of their information, their username, their password, go ahead and click this email this user their credentials checkbox. And once you save this new user, it's going to go ahead and send that to them. So when we're creating a new user, we can go ahead and we can select the site that they're assigned to if we want to. If we want to, we can restrict a user to having access only to assets in a specific category. So for example, maybe somebody only needs access to band equipment, or we could restrict them to access only to a specific department. So for example, maybe someone only needs access to special ed equipment, and you could have those combined. So we can have restriction by category and department, or just department if we want, et cetera, et cetera. Now you can also set their permissions to which modules this user has access to. So for example, for assets, can they view assets, transfer assets, create, edit, delete, check in, check out, do disposal requests? Can they view reports? Can they view disposals? Can they create new models? Can they create new status labels? All of these different things, you get the option to basically select if a user has view, create, edit, or delete access to like all the little different nooks and crannies of K12 Asset Pro here. But that is a lot of choices you need to make for each user. So you'll notice that on the main user info page here, if we scroll all the way down, you can set up pre-made permission groups. And that way, if you're adding, for example, a new IT coordinator, we can just go ahead and select IT coordinator, and they'll automatically inherit the permissions that we want for that IT coordinator to have. And setting up these permission groups is something you can do, but usually we'll often do that side by side with you. So if you want to set up some permission groups, just let us know. And somebody from our support team will be glad to kind of sit with you and set up those permission groups so you can make sure you've got them set up exactly how you want. Okay, next thing we're going to look at is reports. So if I go ahead and click on my reports tab here, we've got a bunch of different pre-made reports in the system here, like a depreciation report, an end of life report. Take a look at all of our overdue assets, things like that. But the most common report that you'll be running will be the top here. It's the custom asset report. And when I click on that, what you'll see is that we've got a report builder here. And on the right-hand side, all of the different data fields that you track for your assets are available to be included in any report that you're generating. And you do not have to have them all in. I can deselect that, and then I can go ahead and select just the data fields that I want to have included in my report. But you've got the option there. You can include anything or nothing that you want. And all of these reports come out as an Excel spreadsheet, so they're pretty easy to further sort and filter and slice and dice and email to whoever needs to after you've generated them. But you can go ahead and you can select which data fields you want in your report, and then you can filter your report. So for example, I can say maybe I only want assets that are in the elementary school, or maybe I need assets in elementary school west and high school west. Maybe I want only assets that are Title I funding, or maybe I need all of my different title funding sources here, and I can go ahead and select all those. Or maybe I'm looking for just band equipment, or maybe I'm looking for just laptops, things like that. You can go ahead and use all of these different filters and data fields to create your report here. Now, any data fields that you leave blank and don't include any information in, it's going to give you everything available for that data field. So for example, right now, I'm going to be seeing just laptops that are one of these three funding sources that are at one of these two schools. However, if I remove these funding sources, now what I'm going to see is not that I'm going to see no funding sources, I'm going to see everything. So this report will show me all laptops at these two schools, regardless of what funding source, regardless of the model, regardless of the department. So if you wanted to just export a list of all of the assets in the whole district, you can just go ahead and leave these blank, and this is going to give you a report of every asset in the whole district. Now, a pretty common report to run is assets by status. So, for example, if we've got a monthly board meeting coming up and we want to send them a list of all of the assets that are awaiting disposal approval, we can go ahead and select that awaiting disposal approval status for ourselves here. And when we run this report, we can have it give us the location of the asset, the original purchase cost, the funding source, the age of the asset, when the asset was purchased, all of that information, any and everything that the board might need to see in that report so that they can go ahead and sign off on those disposals for you. So that's a pretty common report to run. It's just that asset by status awaiting disposal approval. Okay. So that's running our reports. That's nice and simple. And when you're done, you've selected everything. You just click the generate button down at the bottom right-hand corner here for yourself. And so let's pretend like we've gone ahead and we've run that report of all those assets that are awaiting disposal approval, and the board has signed off on those for us. And we need to go ahead and dispose of those in the system now. So let's go ahead and process that disposal. So we're going to come and we're going to click on our assets list here, and we can look at a list of any of the different statuses of our assets that we have here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on awaiting disposal approval. And you'll see that we get a list of all of our assets that are awaiting disposal approval. So we've got that interactive panel here that we did a few minutes ago, as well as some other items that we've already got awaiting disposal approval in the system here. Now, when I am ready to dispose these, I can dispose of these assets one at a time, or I can do it in bulk. If I click my checkbox at the top, I can go ahead and select everything that's visible on the page. If I have more than 20 assets that are awaiting disposal approval, maybe I'll go ahead and have it display more assets on a page for me, so I can go ahead and select more and do them all in one fell swoop. If I wanted to dispose, let's say, just these 4 or 5 assets together, I can go ahead and select just those checkboxes. So I can choose how many I want to dispose at the same time. You can dispose up to 500 all at the same time. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to click on this drop down menu here, and we'll click on our dispose button. Now, because this is an admin account here, I have the option to delete or dispose assets. So I always like to pause here and kind of go over the difference between deleting and disposing. Deleting an asset is only if an asset was entered into the system by accident. And so we need to remove it out and pretend like it was never there. So this could be if we accidentally put a tag on a piece of equipment that we don't need to actually be tracking, or maybe we accidentally entered a piece of equipment that's a teacher's personal property, or maybe we accidentally added a second tag to the same item, not realizing it was already in the system. For example, maybe an interactive panel has a tag on the back of it, and it was obscured by the wall, and we didn't realize that. So we put a new asset tag onto the side, and then we realized we had a duplicate in the system. So deleting an asset will remove the asset from the system and remove all traces. It'll be like it never existed. There's no record that it was ever there. Disposing an asset is what we're doing 99% of the time. This is when we're retiring an asset and we just want to mark it as not being in the district anymore, but we do want to keep all of the original purchasing information for it. So disposing is what keeps that paper trail. So that's what we're doing 99% of the time in the district here. So I always like to go over that if you're using an admin account. So I'll go ahead and click on dispose and hit my little blue arrow here. And now you'll see all those assets that I selected are loaded in my asset tag numbers up top here. And the rest of this is pretty straightforward. I'll go ahead and I'll select a disposal date for these items. I'll select a reason for disposal, whether it's obsolete, broken, lost, stolen, other, etc. So I'll go ahead and say these are broken. We do a method for disposal. So whether we auctioned or sold off the equipment, donated, e-waste, trash, recycled, etc. These look like they're all devices, so I'm going to go ahead and say that we're e-wasting them. We can go ahead and put who this was approved by. So we'll say it was approved by the board. And then we can just put some notes, just something that's going to be part of the paper trail here, part of the disposal record for us. So we'll go ahead and say these were broken beyond repair. And last but not least, we have the opportunity to upload a file here if we want. This is optional. This could be something like a copy of the board signature. If there was equipment that we auctioned or sold off, we could go ahead and put a copy of the bill of sale. If this was items that were stolen, we could put a copy of the police report. It's just optional for us, but we can just add any kind of file that we want to be part of that disposal record. So then we'll go ahead and click dispose, and we're all set. Now, once an asset is disposed, it is removed from our active inventory, but as I said, we do keep the paper trail of it. So if we want to, and you've been given access to view disposed assets, we can come to our disposed assets list here, and we can go ahead and we can click on any asset. And we'll see we still maintain all that original purchasing information, the purchase date, the purchase cost, PO number, funding source, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Even the whole history log is still maintained for that item for us. So we keep a record, we've got that in case we need that for any of the auditors. Now, the last thing that I want to show you is that we've learned how to add assets and we've learned how to edit them and we've learned how to create new users and generate reports and do disposals in the systems. I want to show you how to edit assets in bulk. So I'm going to come back to a list of all of our assets that we've got here. And anytime that we're looking at a list, you'll see we do have that checkbox next to them. So I can come here and maybe I'll search for laptop and I'll see that these are actually all Chromebooks and I kind of want the description of these, instead of being laptop, I want the description of these to be Chromebook. So I can go ahead and select all these Chromebooks that I've got here. And if I wanted to, I could select the whole list here down with that master checkbox at the top, or I could just go ahead and select the individual items that I want to be editing in bulk here. And you'll see my actions menu here is just like the actions menu on an individual asset. So we've got edit, transfer, request disposal, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to start off by just doing an edit here. And I'll hit my blue arrow to kind of engage that. And then we'll see that we've got all of our data fields available here for us. So we can go ahead and we can edit any data fields we want. So I'm going to go ahead and edit the description to be Chromebook. And I'm going to leave everything else blank. Now, what that means is all those assets I selected, it's going to update the asset description, but it's not going to change the model. It's not going to change the status. It's not going to change the purchase date. Any data fields that are left blank in this bulk edit are going to remain untouched for us here. So it doesn't matter that there was several different models of Chromebook that I selected and I'm editing at the same time, because the only thing that's going to be updated is that I'm going to be updating the asset description for this to say Chromebook. So I can go ahead and click save on that, and now those will get updated. Now, for example, we can also do transfers as well in bulk. We can request disposals in bulk. So there's a bunch of things that we can do in bulk in the system here. And this is another reason that adding filters onto your list can be very helpful because, for example, it might be that, let's say, we needed to edit all of the laptops that were at the elementary school. We can go ahead and we can filter by that category and that school. And then now, if I needed to, I could go and do some bulk editing, bulk updating, bulk transfer, bulk disposal requests to all these assets at the same time. And that's pretty much a lot of the day-to-day function of using K12 Asset Pro. So again, we've learned how to add an asset, we've learned how to edit it and manipulate it, we've learned how to run reports on it, we've learned how to edit those assets in bulk, and we've learned how to finish the life cycle by doing those disposal requests and disposing of them in the system. Now, I always encourage you, please don't hesitate to reach out to our support team if you have any questions at all as you're using K12 Asset Pro. We have a fantastic support team that is here, waiting, and ready to hear from you. If you want to, also, you can always click on the help button in the top right-hand corner. That's going to bring you to our support page here, where you'll see that we've got lots of articles and videos on how to do all the stuff that we talked about today. So you've got individual articles here on all of the little features of K12 Asset Pro. We go even more in depth into things that we didn't talk about today. You have troubleshooting. And if you need to reach out to our support team, you can always reach out to them right here. We've got a contact button, or you can always email our support team directly at support@davidassets.com. Again, please don't hesitate with any questions at all. We are here to help you.